Hello, I'm Chris, founder of Rebel Commerce Solutions, growth partner to startups helping fearless entrepreneurs make it happen. Welcome to the Rebellious Times podcast, where we explore the intersection of human ambition and technology. Each episode, we dive deep with founders, innovators, and thought leaders who are reshaping how we build, scale, and work in the AI revolution. I'm delighted to introduce Kevin Israel, VP of Delivery Support at Terrazzo, a digital engineering consultancy that bridges the innovation gap between companies' existing systems and the humans they serve. Kevin, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Chris. How are you?
Yeah, doing great, thanks. Doing great, feeling good. This is my second podcast episode, so I'm feeling kind of confident and ready to go here.
All right.
So
There you
yeah,
go. You're on fire.
I'm on fire. Yeah, I'm cooking. I'm hoping to cook. So thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Um, I would love to hear about your journey and how. So the title of the podcast episode, AI Readiness Gap, what startup founders need to know before investing. So you have a lot of experience with your company of helping startups understand that what is suitable for them from an AI perspective, what will work for them, where they should focus their efforts. So I'd love to hear about both your journey and then about Terrazzo and how you're helping your customers.
Oh, absolutely. So, yeah, my journey started a while ago, back in probably 2020. It was my first job out of college. So, my background is primarily on software engineering, and I did the typical arc in my career, moving into software and solution architectures, enterprise architectures, and learned over time. And I positioned myself thoughtfully in my career against the different verticals, whether it's finance or real estate, logistics, whatever it may be. And then also with different types of companies, Fortune 500, small, medium-sized startups. Fell in love with startups. Startups provide a lot of opportunity and a lot of growth and a lot of experience. The good thing about a startup, if you're in, as a technologist, you get to wear a lot of hats. So you learn a lot and you kind of really it's something, and then to be able to see like the fruition of your work is very nice. So, and I love helping people build dreams. So there you
Fantastic.
go.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So how did you start with Terrazzo?
I started with Terrazzo as a kind of a technical manager, delivery director type thing, technical delivery director, and moved up to VP and general manager, and currently help them on the solution side. They're a system integrator, cloud contact center, and we're really heavy into the data space at this point. And so that's kind of where my journey into the data and the AI work has begun. And I've been able to carry that kind of outside Terrazzo, helping startups through incubators and accelerators, and working with startups through different foundations like Launch CLT in Charlotte. So it's a passion that I have in Terrazzo and outside of Terrazzo, and yeah, it's what I like to do.
So it sounds like you've managed to dig deep into quite a lot of startups and see how they're thinking about things. What are you seeing out there? Why is it some startups maybe aren't ready for AI implementation, and what are maybe some common misconceptions about AI readiness?
Sure. Well, I think in terms of startups, you really start with the fundamental. And for the context of the conversation, understand that in its current state, AI is a tool, right? And uh, uh, as a newer tool, everything is a nail. And that's kind of the downside of the hyperbole, is like everything is a nail. And the reality is, since it's just a tool, it still doesn't fit everything that needs to be done, or there are other tools that may do certain use cases better. So that's first thing, is really, as a founder, going back to the fundamentals of a startup, which is, what problem am I solving, right? If we're just trying to find something to solve with AI, that's typically a recipe for not too much success, right? So you really want to identify the problem that you're solving, and then identify the best way to solve it. And within that umbrella of thought, perhaps there's a use case for AI. And that's really the best way, I think, to think about it. What problem am I solving? And how do I solve it? Within that umbrella, is there a use case for AI that's going to allow me to accelerate growth, get a faster time to market, provide a faster proof of concept, do more with less? So that's really, I think, a good way to frame it. I think that's a good place to start. Again, not everything needs an AI solution, right? I've talked to founders who, at the end of the day, really could get faster with simply a no code, low code solution, maybe a quick integration, a few little automation tools, and they would have a nice proof of concept to take to get venture capital or to pitch, pitch the deck. They don't necessarily need AI. Understand AI can be a pitfall, right? And we can talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you have any interesting examples, or where are examples where practical applications of AI have worked, have been successful in achieving these business goals?
Well, sure. I think they're always successful when you have a really defined use case that fits AI. There's two types of AI, or there's many types of AI. There's two core types of AI, which is really, generative AI, which is all the buzz, and that's really good if I want to generate content, analyze documents, do some things on the creative side. I need to answer the questions, and I can augment my platforms with that, especially in terms of information retrieval and those things. And then what businesses really today seem very excited over is what agentic AI, right? So this is very small use case AI. Think chatbots or automation tools that really can work autonomously, that have been trained well and perform a very specific business function, right? So in businesses really, in terms of business cases, that's really the focus of businesses now. How can I leverage agentic AI to get better customer engagement, to get, better, supply chain delivery and all those types of things? And that's really the focus now. So understanding kind of the use case and building to that is good. And also making sure you have the data. And I know we had spoken previously, the data is the main driver of AI. And people, and when I first went to college, first thing they taught us was garbage in, garbage out. Garbage in, garbage out. If you put bad data in, you're going to get bad data out. But that still applies to AI. And that's one of the major things that you'll see is you really have to have good, clean, structured, and ready data. And as a founder of a startup, that's the one. If you're going to do AI, if you make that decision, that's the first thing you have to tackle. How do I get that data? And it used to be, when AI was first starting, to say, oh, you have to have all of this, terabytes and terabytes of data to train models. And what we realize now is you're still going to get the results based on the value and the data that you have, right? The data is relevant. If it's clean and it fits your business, that's what you need. Just having data for the sake of data really brings no value. It's when you can intersect that data to help drive decisions, to drive advancement, scale, and all those things in your business. That's where the value is. There's a lot of companies that have failed at AI because they tried to tackle a problem thinking, hey, we're going to solve this problem no one else has been able to solve because we're going to leverage AI to do it. And they end up failing because a lot of things, right? The complexity of the interaction of the business is more than AI can handle at this point. Or the complexity of the points that I need to do internally, operationally, are very complex and AI can't do it. There are certain things, for example, if I'm a startup and I want to do fintech, what's the number one thing I need to think of and be aware of? I just can't run an open model and use public data to drive fintech. It's something you have to think about. You have governance, you have compliance issues, it's a regulated environment. So you have to understand that building AI is going to be much more rigorous because there's much more rigor in the process. There's much more control over the data. You know what I mean? So It's not just building AI, it's really the use case and the vertical that you're getting into, and how does that data work, having the right data. If I'm a startup and I don't have any data, but I'm going to be a data-based company, how am I going to get my data? Right? These are all the things that you have to consider.
Yeah, so startups that think about potentially leveraging AI in the future need to start thinking about what sort of data they're gathering and storing and structuring right now to prepare themselves, right? And then once you've got the data and you've got it structured in a way that you're able to leverage, then you've got to operationalize it. So you've got to create the prompts, help the users within the business leverage the information that's there somehow. How do companies
Mhm.
create guardrails to ensure the quality of the outputs from both a internal user perspective and an automation perspective?
Well, there's different mechanisms to do this. Number one, you have people that are always training the model and tuning the model. So having people that can do that is key, right? Because again, the AI is driven by the models that you produce. So you must have someone that understands the business case and can train and tune the models accordingly moving forward. And you have to think iteratively. You're probably not going to nail it out of the box in terms of the AI implementation. But what you have to do at that point, instead of striving for perfection, is strive for good enough because the models take time to train and learn, and you have the ability to add more data to your data sets as you go, which will also help train up. So, and using that as kind of a basis is really what you want to strive for. Let's go for good enough and then iterative. AI, developing AI products is like any other software product. There's an iterative process to it, and you can expand capabilities as you go. You don't want to, and again, a lot of the struggles around AI with businesses are just struggles in general, you know, and quite frankly, when it comes to AI, a lot of companies, 20-year-old companies are startups because AI is new and they're all kind of struggling with the same problems. And in certain ways, startups that are clean have it better because they have better choices in terms of data. If I'm a 20-year-old business and I'm going to build, AI off of my data, that could be a little bit tricky. Have I accumulated the right data? Is my data really in a state where we talked about, where I have a semantic layer that can translate it from, raw data to data that makes sense that I can make decisions with and train on, right? So, sometimes at least a startup now in today's world can figure out, what data do I need? How do I best get it? And then how do I operationalize it? Actually faster than large companies can that have to kind of sift through their data and figure out what they need to do and how they clean it up. But operationalizing is a key, but a lot of that is also having the people that understand the data, the domain of the data, the business expertise, and can marry the two to really tune and train those models.
Okay, so there's an opportunity for startups to kind of get ahead without some of the legacy um, challenges of a larger business, but they need to have the resources assigned to be able to understand it and train it. Where do you see a sweet spot
Exactly,
for
exactly.
Terrazzo clients? What sort of size of business, head count, types of business? Where does it where does it kind of kick in that a business is capable of leveraging your services to really get ahead?
Well, typically any size. We tend to really deal with small, medium, and large size company, and can do enterprise as well. Right now, we're really focused on the regulated industries. We partnered with Databricks, and through that, we can rapidly help companies, see results pretty quickly. ROR versus their ROI. So the typical use case we would get would be some type of financial institution that wants to keep their data on-prem. And they do that for compliance and security, right? I want my actual data on premises, but I want the compute in cloud and I want the analysis in cloud. So that's a perfect scenario for, an established industry. If I am new to the game and I am starting to build, as long as I do it within a compliant way and a secure way, I can store my data in cloud. There's less cost associated with that, but because the real cost with data is all that ingress and egress between my on-prem network and my cloud network. That can be pretty costly over time, especially for large amounts of data. So and as a startup, I want to think about storing my data securely. I have to make sure it's secure and can pass compliance. But storing it all in cloud gives them kind of a leverage up, because it's less work involved to operationalize, and as we said, and then move that to areas where I can run models, train it, tune it, do analytics. And a lot of companies don't want more than just analytics. I might want dashboards. And one of the things that really, if you're a fintech, you also have to understand auditability, right? So I'm going to get audited. How does my AI work within an audited situation? And that's really been a thing that we've just been discussing in the community is, how do we know what's going on in the covers with AI? How do we know that it's actually what it's doing? So really understanding how we build good audit is something we can help clients with well, how to audit their AI.
Fantastic. That's great. Let me see. I'm referring to my list of questions here. I think we've covered quite a lot. I think we've got some really good information for founders here on how to really think about structuring their business for success with AI, and learnt a bit about Terrazzo. Is there anything else you'd like to share on the subject? You know, what do you think about the future for AI? How things are moving so fast. How should we be looking at the next 2 or 3 years and planning to compete?
It's a good question. I think that at this stage, we're just now figuring out the best ways to use AI. It's been around for a minute, but now that we're seeing the advancements in the way that AI can respond, the better models that are coming out, the faster, more complex models that can handle things. I think, as a founder, I'm going to think about what, again, like if I'm starting off to build a solution around AI, what problem am I solving? Is an AI a good fit for it? Once I come to that conclusion, yes, ask your friends, do some focus groups, make sure that the problem you're solving is legit. That's always the first thing you're going to do, and is validated by the market, not by what I think, but by the market. And additionally, how would AI fit that solution? If you do, then you need to start figuring out just the fundamental things. And that's the best way I can wrap up. How do I get the data? How do I get it into the place that I can operationalize it? What does that look like? Do I know enough about the business to operationalize it? What you actually see is everybody is big on LLMs, and usually for businesses, a small language model is actually better, because it doesn't need as much data, and the data that I want to feed that model can be very business centric, right? So that's one thing I should also think about as a startup is, do I need all this public data to solve my use case, or should I focus on getting the right data sets? Again, I can lower cost to get the right data sets, get that data operationalized, get someone in that can help me tune it and train it and build some AI. That small proof of concept will get you there. And really the same process, honestly, for any business, So again, like we like to think about it that when in terms of AI, everyone's a startup.
Yeah. Absolutely awesome, Kevin. Thank you so much. Some amazing information for founders here on how to think about setting themselves up for success with AI. Look forward to catching up with you soon.
It sounds good, Chris. Thank you so much.
All the best.
Have a great one. All right. You too.